Greetings, Culture Warriors. It is I, Jeff Yeager, author of Culture is Everything, and your host for this latest dispatch from the front. Today I'm going to talk extemporaneously, always a dangerous thing, about something I see out there on LinkedIn and elsewhere. You know, there's still an awful lot of Americans who are unemployed. This pandemic, and more particularly the moronic lockdown that we're enduring, has really done a number on the economy. It's destabilized companies. It's put the fear of God into hiring managers and their bosses to the point where there are hiring freezes on in a lot of places, layoffs imminent in others. It is a scary, scary time out there. So I just want to point something out for those job seekers out there. You know, in the book, we talk about the importance of knowing what you need from a company and putting culture first when you evaluate that company. Now, there are a couple of objections that tend to arise to that sort of strategy when you're a job seeker. One of them is to say, look, I got to pay the bills. So why wouldn't I, take a better paying job at a company that's got a terrible culture? Well, the answer is because if it's got a terrible culture, that the stability of that terrible job is not going to be very good. And if you are drawing a significant paycheck, all you're doing is essentially putting a target on your back for the next round of layoffs. And then you'll have wasted your time. You'll have stressed yourself out for no good reason. Right? For what? For a few extra months, to basically to restock your savings a little bit before you have to endure the next round of unemployment. No, the better strategy is to seek out a company where you are a fit, where the culture matches your strengths. Because then, even in the case that you're in a job that gets on the chopping block, if you're a good fit, chances are people will look for a way to keep you, even if it means moving you over to another role. People like to hang on to people that they enjoy working with, particularly in stressful times, such as when layoffs hit. So it's generally a better strategy to go put in culture first. Look for that good culture fit. Look for where you are able to be strong and grow. The other thing to consider is, let's say you enter a job and you're basically on the clock in terms of the countdown to, if this lockdown madness continues, the next round of layoffs. So the faster you can show your value, the better off you're going to be. And you will be able to show your value and have it appreciated far more reliably in a culture that is suitable for you than in one which is not. If you have to put a lot of effort into pretending to be someone you're not, it's not going to work over the long haul. Let's say everything goes wonderfully, these lockdowns get lifted, and we return to a sense of sanity and normalcy in this country. Well, then over that period of time, you're going to find yourself potentially stuck in a job that's not a good job for you, and a culture that's not a fit. And even if you do grow, you're going to grow in ways that are not rewarded by that particular culture. How long will that condition last? At some point, you'll still be out on the pavement looking for another job, guaranteed. So the better strategy is don't jump for an immediate paycheck. Again, if you're absolutely desperate, that's an exception to the rule. But the better strategy is to look for a company which will respect you, which will treat you well, which will grow you, which gives you hope for the future, which we all need so desperately in these times. This brings up a second objection. Well, what if the company with the great culture offers me a salary that's significantly less than the company that's got a terrible culture? This is a pretty common occurrence, by the way. Why are they offering that high a salary? Chances are it's because they have to pay more in order to get people to come aboard. Nobody really puts a ton of money out there from the get-go, unless that's kind of the going rate in the market for that particular position in that particular company. So a company that is going down in flames feels the need to present more lucrative offers to candidates in key roles in order to entice them to take the offer, because the company's going down in flames. It's going to be a lot of stress, it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of risk. So there has to be compensation there. So more highly paid is not always better. It's a situation that could wind up backfiring on you. And again, what good does it do you if you're in roles which offer a bonus, for example? What good does it do you to enter a company that has no chance of funding their bonus? Don't be enticed by that large potential bonus, because you'll never see it. Better to go with a company that has a small bonus that you will see. That's just logical sense, right? But the other thing is for your own sanity and mental health and well-being, it's better to be on a winning team than on a losing team. If your company is a losing, man, it is a struggle. That's not to say there aren't professionals who make their careers with those companies. They are and do, but they tend to be kind of a unique breed. For most of us, it's better off to find a place where there is some amount of reasonable safety, where you can focus on the long term. You're not in foxhole mode all the time. And you can build and grow your career, and you can deepen your relationships with the people around you. There's less chaos, a little more order. In these times, that's a very attractive proposition. So as you consider as a job seeker what you're looking for, I would recommend that while money is always of interest, money is always important. That's generally why we work, is to earn the money that we need in order to support our families, in order to support our interests in life. That's why we do it. We are trading our time, we are trading our effort for the money we need to do things we need and prefer to do. But that should not be your primary consideration. I've had plenty of instances where I've had multiple offers on the table, and some were more lucrative than others. But you have to consider what will make you happiest, what will be the best for your career, what's a situation that will allow you to thrive, what's better for your family, because not all those offers are created equal either. Some of them require moving, relocating, and that can be a big stress on your family. Some of them require more travel. Some of them require longer hours, fewer vacations. Some of them require that you may not be available to see your kids play football or baseball, basketball. You have to factor these things in. Obviously, benefits packages vary as well, so you need to take a look at that when you're evaluating your offer, because those are all things that are important, not just to yourself, but to your family. But I would argue that those companies that have great cultures that suit you are generally going to have benefits packages that suit you, opportunities which suit you, and most importantly, working environments and relationships with colleagues which will suit you well. That's very, very important. So much about what we report on in the ins and outs of these companies and how they get into trouble for doing this and that comes down to they have a culture and they are changing their culture in ways which are alienating good employees. Isn't that at the root of it when you think about some of those stories, some of those companies that are foundering? It comes down to culture, because culture, of course, is everything. So I would ask that you consider and value those things that are culture related first. Don't let the immediacy of your unemployment drive you to do something which is going to be disastrous. Because again, all it means in the end is you will be unemployed again. And even though it's true that in this economy, there's not a stigma necessarily associated with switching jobs frequently and working for an employer for a shorter period of time and it not working out. There's much less stigma associated with that today than there's been in the past. But the fact remains, it is draining to go through that layoff job seeking cycle, especially when you weren't expecting it. It sucks the life right out of you. And let's face it, if you do find a company that is a better culture fit than your last one, it feels like an upgrade. It feels like things are moving in the right direction in your career. It gives you hope for the future that this job will not end in the conversation that the last job did. Again, there are things that are beyond our control, obviously, in these situations. Nobody could have anticipated that we would lock down the entire country in an act of signal madness for a cold that has proven to be no more lethal than the flu we were suffering this year. Who on earth could have predicted that? Not the experts, surely. And so there are so many millions of people who are unexpectedly dumped into the unemployment rolls and now are kind of swimming, treading water, just trying to get to the next role. We hear constantly that those companies which are hiring are overwhelmed with applicants. And this is another aspect of modern HR stupidity. They are overwhelmed with applicants because they put skills first. Even though when you talk to hiring managers, almost all of them will tell you that given a choice between a candidate who checked all the boxes on skills and experience and a candidate who checked all the boxes on culture and attitude, they would take that first, the latter. But that's not how the process works. Instead, they filter out all the candidates, who, if it says on their preferred, 30 years of experience with COBOL programming, then by God, if you've got 29 years of experience with COBOL programming, given the amount of applicants they have coming through those applicant tracking systems, guess what? They're going to kick you out. You're never even going to get looked at. It doesn't matter that you are a perfect fit for the culture of that company, that you would be the dream teammate for the folks that are laboring there now. It doesn't matter because you'll never get to a phone interview, much less a face-to-face interview, because the recruiter will screen that out. It is a stupid, counterproductive system. And that's why I advise, particularly for folks that have some experience, leverage your network. Talk to people who know you and the work that you do and ask them. 80% of jobs don't even get posted. So you're not going to find them to apply to them on LinkedIn. I've got a long list of jobs I've applied to on LinkedIn. You kind of have to go through the motions of that effort. It's like a lottery ticket. None of them have paid off. And it's no wonder. I mean, I didn't expect any of them to, but what else are you going to do, right? But a more profitable way to go about it is to talk to people in your network. Everyone knows somebody who's been impacted by this, so they're generally sympathetic ears to this. And if you can find ones where the companies actually do not have a hiring freeze on, then you can have a productive conversation and maybe get to a hiring manager who's actually looking for somebody. And now you walk into that conversation with a referral in hand from somebody that they trust. And that means something. Generally, it means that you at least get to talk to the person. And if you do, and you're not a fit for whatever role they have, perhaps they can recommend you for another. People will generally try to help you. But you're going to have to leverage your network and reach out first. So at the end of the day, job seekers, know what it is that you need in order to thrive. If that means going out and taking different assessments or going back through your pile of folders and documents from previous jobs and finding ones that you did, fine. But take that inventory of what it is you need in terms of cultural values in order for you to have an environment in which you can be the best that you can possibly be. And then start working your network to find those roles, your professional network, but also talk to people at your church, talk to people, friends and family. If, like me, you've recently moved to a new area, then you're going to need to leverage those kind of networks in order to find something in the area, because you may not have anyone in your network that happens to be in that state. I know in my case, most of the people I know professionally, well, no surprise, they happen to live in the states where I used to work. I don't work in those states anymore. So now I've got to reach out to other folks in order to leverage that networking and get a role, unless I want to move back to a state I lived in previously. That's just the way it kind of works. And lastly, I want to wrap up today by putting in a plug for one of the most important values of all, and that is hope. We live in dark times. These are awful, unprecedented times in the United States of America. Awful. And it seems, there's jokes and memes on the internet that, okay, well, COVID-19 had a go of it. Now it's murder hornets. Now it's rioters and looters. What will it be next, Godzilla? Those kind of things going around, because it feels like it's just one damn thing after another. And as soon as you get some sense of normalcy back in your life, well, the next thing's coming to upend that apple cart, right? You have to have hope. You have to know that things will get better. I feel particularly sad for young people because they have not been through anything even analogous to this. For those of us that remember what it was like in those days after the towers came down in 9/11, going back further, my goodness, you can, if you are as old as I am, you might remember gas lines in the 70s. You might remember how bad things were under the Carter administration, how hopeless everything seemed at that time. And it got better. It took a little time, but it got better. Not just a little better, way better. Hanging on to that value of hope. Keep plugging on. Keep moving forward. We had a podcast a couple of days ago about a 27-year-old man who took a shotgun to his head. Or a gun to his head. I'm not sure if it was a shotgun. Terrible. He lost hope. He didn't have faith that things were going to get better. My friends, if you cling to no value except that, hang on to hope. Focus one day at a time and never let yourself stop believing that tomorrow can be a better day. My pilot friends are fond of saying that when something happens in the air, the first and most important thing you have to do is to take stock of where you're at and say to yourself, okay, we're still flying. Right? That's the first thing to consider. We're still flying. We've still got a shot at fixing whatever it is that's wrong and getting home safely. You have to calm yourself. You can't be thinking worst case scenario. If your first reaction to a siren wailing or a light blinking at you in a cockpit is, we're all going to die, you don't really have what it takes to be a very good pilot. If you watch The Right Stuff and you saw the story of Chuck Yeager, who was the first man to break the sound barrier, a tremendous test pilot, crashed a lot of planes and walked away from them. Chuck Yeager's demeanor was so calm that it was used as the model for how pilots interact with their passengers during emergencies. That very slow drawl, understated communication came directly from Chuck Yeager. When you hear a pilot come on over that intercom and say, "Well, folks, we got a little problem here," you know two things. One is that problem's bigger than he's saying it is. And number two is you're in good hands because he's calm and he's rational and he's thinking. I'll never forget a story during the first Gulf War in 1991. We were engaged in coalition warfare. We hadn't really fought alongside our British counterparts in some time. And so the generation of folks that were actually waging that war alongside the British weren't used to the quirks of the British national personality. And so they didn't understand that kind of understated Chuck Yeager-esque communication was just how the British were. So when you were say back at headquarters trying to target artillery strikes somewhere, you would reach out to your forward locations and ask, "How are you guys doing?" And the British person, the British NCO or officer who was getting the crap pounded out of them by the enemy would say something along the lines of, "It's getting a little sticky here." Those who didn't know the Brits would just move on to the next forward location. Those who did would know to call in an airstrike because they were getting pounded. That's just the way the British are. Stiff upper lip, right? Keep calm, carry on, that sort of thing. That's the way we should strive to be in these times of great stress, bother, and worry. We're still flying. And as long as we're flying, we got a chance of bringing this thing home. Thank you, and have a great day.